Before we begin, thank you very much to Stephen D for joining the Patreon campaign. Thank you very much for supporting. Actually, thank you for supporting again. That is a very familiar name to me. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for everyone who has been supporting the channel. I'm not kidding when I say it's the reason I can continue to do this for everybody. So if you'd like it to continue, then please consider dropping $1 or $2 a month into my Patreon. The link is in the description below. You can get benefits like being able to join my exclusive Discord server or even video requests periodically, should you be so generous. So thank you everyone for allowing me to continue being a silly toy man on YouTube. Let us continue being a silly toy man because we're going to be talking about Ironhide today. So this is a format I like where we kind of look at 5 bad and 5 good of any particular example in Transformers. So today we are going to be talking about Ironhide's various toys over the years. You will be happy to know that we're not going to be discussing a couple of particular ones that are always kind of divisive, and I tend to defend when most people attack. The first one would be Recon Ironhide, which I think is a perfectly fine toy outside of a few weird flaws that really don't hurt it. And then we have G1 Ironhide, which you're seeing here. We aren't going to be debating him today. I know most people do not like the toy because of its weird design, inaccuracy to the cartoon. That's the cartoon's fault, not the toy's fault. I tend to find the toy pretty good because it offers a different play value than all the other Autobot cars from 1984. But we're not getting into him today. No. I'm going to try and get to a few examples that either no one really talks about anymore, or we've kind of forgotten to talk about because they've been usurped in their positions. So let's start with a bad Ironhide toy, and we have to go back to around about 2008 for this, and we'll talk about Universe Ironhide. This was the first attempt at modern retail to do a brand new Generation 1 Ironhide, and you can already tell where it went wrong. So aside from it's an incorrect vehicle, there's going to be some incorrect vehicles here, but in this case, when you're doing the first Ironhide since G1, you kind of want it to be correct, and they kind of blew it on that one. Beyond that, the vehicle mode has always looked very broken up to me. I mean, first off, you've got the windshields that are baby blue over the solid plastic and dark translucent blue. I never understood why Hasbro doesn't try to paint match those better. You also have a lot of panel lines all over this SUV mode, which makes it look like it's been in a wreck and pieced back together. The windows in particular look like they're broken. I've never understood that. And then, of course, the absence of the yellow stripes, so it looks kind of dull on top of all that. You get into the robot mode. So this is from the Dark of the Moon and like Revenge of the Fallen. That era of toys where things are just way overcomplicated for what they have to accomplish. And a lot of that Revenge of the Fallen engineering creeped into this Ironhide because it's way too complicated for what it has to do. You end up with an over-involved toy that has a lot of weird elements for Ironhide. The scrawny arms that aren't very blocky, the weird legs with floating ankles, and the blue face. To this day, I do not understand why his face is blue. Hasbro said they were going to running change it. They never did. So this is like a kind of a forgotten Ironhide. I don't hear anyone talk about this one anymore. Kind of rightfully so. You know who pulled it off better? You know who pulled it off better? Botcon pulled it off better. So really, the first brand new G1 looking Ironhide since Generation 1 was done for the very first Botcon big box multi-pack. And it's actually a pretty good job. So it's a brand new head on Energon Towline, who is already a big homage to the original play pattern and design of the G1 vans. Here done very lovingly and appropriately into Ironhide, and windows are consistent. They didn't paint the other little windows, so that makes it look consistent. It's a fun toy. It's always been a really good toy. And while it doesn't fit Ironhide great because some bits are a little bit scrawny, remember, the toy is homaging how the original play pattern worked with the battle skiff and all that. If you equate it to more the toy of G1 Ironhide, this is actually a really, really fair approximation with some modern and like expected elements of that Ironhide blended in. It's a pretty interesting mix. It's a really interesting mix, and it does make for a really fun take on Ironhide. So back to the bad side of things, there is a way of doing Ironhide in a more scrawny body where it just doesn't work, and that's when you're taking elements of his identity away. So let's take a look at the Combiner War one. For starters, thank you to Sabertron.com for the photo, because I couldn't find any like stock photo of this toy where the front end was actually properly transformed. On the actual stock photo, it's over his head like he's Huffer or something. So I had to go to someone who knew how to actually transform a transformer in order to actually make this look as good as possible. And it don't look good. It don't look good. You can't make Ironhide scrawny. The name Ironhide alone just kind of like makes you think big, beefy boy, you know? So you can't make him scrawny. You certainly can't make him this kind of thin, rounded, and angular. It just doesn't work. It does not work whatsoever. In general, I don't think many of those like 84 Autobots into Combiner characters actually worked all that well. In this case, though, you're also taking away a lot of his trademark design elements. The windshield that goes all the way across his chest, that doesn't exist here. It's been broken for the Combiner block. He doesn't have any of his traditional weapons. He's carrying an axe, which he's never had. It's just a really disappointing Ironhide. This is really disappointing. It's a character that was very much crowbarred into that mold just because we need to get an Ironhide in this set. On the good side, however, there is a way of doing very gimmicky Ironhides that can still work with your aesthetic and still look really good as a toy. Meet the Q Transformer Ironhide. I love this little guy. So Q Transformers always all had the same transformation, same aesthetic going for them. The front end became the legs. You just kind of pulled them down on ball joints. You see the torso just flipped up the head. Back end became the arms. Pretty much bog standard how this guy works. All of them kind of work the exact same way. But many of them are very, very awkward at that, especially because a lot of them do not have that front end as a chess card design, you know? So like RC kind of looks a little bit weird in that line. Ironhide manages to look really, really good. And he actually comes very close to looking how he's supposed to look, despite the limitations of the engineering. And a lot of those that had flat ends like that, like Optimus and Ultra Magnus, also kind of work really, really well in this cutesy aesthetic. Ironhide just feels like comes off the best. I really genuinely feel like this is the best in the Q Transformer line. It's just a cute little desktop Ironhide that's, you know, not doing anything wrong whatsoever, you know? And he doesn't even look like he's from, he just looks like a gimmicky Ironhide. Doesn't even look like it's from a line that does this consistently. Okay, let's not stick to just Generation 1 style Ironhides, though. We'll touch on them a little bit more later on, but we need to go to some radically different ones, some that carried the name and were supposedly the character, but we know better. So how about the G2 GoBot Ironhide? So, for starters, I'm not picking on this because it's a spy changer and it's a very simple, limited figure. Not at all. In context of its own set. Number one, of course, I'm not faulting this because it's not a red character. You know, none of the G2 GoBots really look like the character they are named after, with maybe the exception of Bumblebee, who is a gold car. But when you look at Ironhide, I mean, one, he looks like a Decepticon. Like, that is absolutely a Decepticon color scheme. Don't get me wrong. And then we look at the truck mode. I'm sorry, that is boring. That is a really boring truck mode. The nice thing about a pickup truck as an alt mode is you have these nice broad canvases down the sides and across the top to where you can do some really interesting things with a deco. I was going to do RID 2001 Ironhide for this particular spot, but because this one is so boring, at least the cow pattern has some character to it, right? This is just dull. This is your dad's pickup truck. This is not an interesting looking transformer in the least. And even besides that, it's still just an awkward toy just in how it's engineered. Of all the spy changers I've owned, and I owned every mold, this is the mold that never really could stand up very well. It's so front heavy that it's very unbalanced, especially if you're starting to like point his gun forward. That means like when you're screwing up as a spy changer, then yeah, you've got problems. You're not a good toy. We can look at a good pickup truck Ironhide though. Let's take a look at the Recon Ironhide. So it's a remold of the 2007 movie Ironhide for Revenge of the Fallen, and my goodness, What a glow up. So you are losing the big gimmicky forearm weapons. Now, I'm never a big fan of those. You have like small equivalency of them. But what comes across in this toy is just one, the new like heavily armored look is super cool. It's a super cool look. Two, I kind of like the lightning bolt deco that's all over him. It's a little bit odd, but I'm kind of into it. It breaks up the black really well. Three, accessories. Oh my god, there's so many accessories on this figure. And interestingly enough, like the very first instance of the C-clip gimmick that ran for a few years throughout multiple Transformer lines that Hasbro never really acknowledged as a thing, but it was. So all these interchangeable C-clipped weapons and bars that could accommodate them, no one really mentioned it, but this is the first toy that could actually utilize that really well. Also, it also addressed a few of the problems the original version of the mold had. In particular, the top part of it, done in translucent plastic, being very fragile. This one is done in opaque with painted windows. The painted windows still look really, really good because it's nice metallic and blue, dark blue. So it doesn't look cheap or anything. And it's far more secure. It's a really good toy already. I already really like the 07 Ironhide. And then you give it this much additional part, this many improvements. Beautiful toy. I think kind of forgotten in just how good this toy was at the time. Yeah, if you slept on it, go look it up. Go look it up. If you're a fan of movie Ironhide and you kind of skipped over this one, go look it up. Because it's definitely one of the best retools they ever did. One of the best reruns of a toy in the line, of any of the movie lines. Okay, I said I was going to try to avoid the low-hanging fruit, but I need 5 bad Ironhides for this list, so a few are going to sneak in there. Let's talk about Beast Wars Ironhide one more time, shall we? It's probably about the last time. I think I've done every other way of talking about this toy that I can, so we're not going to repeat ourselves, but for the sake of completing this video, this ain't a good toy, unfortunately. So, for Magnaboss, it is very clear how these guys were engineered. So, Silverbolt doesn't do a whole lot extra for the combination, aside from providing a few connection points. And then Prowl just has to hold the Magnaboss head as well as just be the core. So you're not really dealing with a whole lot there. Ironhide is like 80% of Magnaboss. It's the arms, it's the legs, it's the overall look, it's the front of the torso. It's a ton of this toy. A ton of Magnaboss is dependent on this toy, which means the individual toy does suffer. So the elephant mode is fine. Elephant mode is fine. It's a big brick of an elephant, but it is fine. And the robot mode is just no. You've got the weird claw hands. You've got, very limited articulation for the Beast Wars series. You got a very noticeable lack of paint and deco. It's just not a great figure on its own because it's sacrificing so much for the combination mode. You can absolutely tell that he was designed with the combination in mind first, and then whatever they could cobble together for the robot, that's what they went with. And it's unfortunate because even aesthetically, he doesn't really mix very well with his Magnaboss brethren. He looks very alien. He looks very off-putting compared to the others. It's just a really weird, in context of himself and the rest of the Beast Wars line, it's just an odd figure all the way around. I don't know, just never was into it, unfortunately. Keep hoping they'll do another Magnaboss so we can get a better one. Just to see if there can be improved. Here's a good one that's much more recent, but I think because of more recent Ironhides, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But for me, I'll be honest, I still kind of like the Earthrise Ironhide a lot. So he does have one glaring flaw, and that's those weird black blocks in the vehicle mode. Just limit of the mold that it's using. But that said, I still think this is a fun Ironhide. I like how it all collapses together. I mean, it's a quicker, more clean transformation than the 86 one that can be a little bit stubborn and not really much of a joy to get into vehicle mode. And overall, it carries the Ironhide silhouette that I want. It actually has the correct look. And it has the yellow stripe. It has the yellow stripe. And then you've got the shield. And now here's the thing. I've said it many times on this channel. I will continue to say it because it continues to be true. I hate when a chunk of the vehicle comes off and just becomes a shield. No, it becomes a piece of kibble that you didn't know how to engineer. Ironhide gets away with it for two reasons. Number one, you have the original vehicle, the original toy that does have the kind of battle skiff thing, which this thing kind of has this weird little surfboard kind of approximation of. But also, and I think this is the better part, Ironhide is always depicted as a security officer. You know, he's a tough veteran on the force. It's the head chief of Cybertronian security, whatever. Usually in the comic books, especially. However, that means that him having a big riot shield actually makes sense. It's the one time that shield accessory kind of fits the character, you know? I don't see Bumblebee with a riot shield that looks like the back half of a Volkswagen, but I could absolutely see Ironhide rolling into battle with his own riot shield, his full body long shield, ready to go as soon as he's in robot mode. That actually makes sense for the character. That is absolutely acceptable. Yeah, I think people sleep on this one. It's still a really nice Ironhide. Let's end on two weird ones, shall we? We got to go back to Generation 2 and talk about one of the last G2 toys released. It was an Ironhide. Don't look like it, though. I mean, but it has to be an Ironhide because it says Ironhide right there on the sticker on its hood. So clearly it's an Ironhide with Euro G1 neon green windows. Okay, look. Ironhide was going through a rough patch, okay? Obviously, it's a name dump. This is one of the G2 style of Power Masters. It didn't involve an engine figure. It involved a pullback motor. And you know the thing that I don't associate Ironhide with is speed. If Ironhide has a dump stat, it's absolutely speed. So a pullback motor is just not a gimmick you would ever include on an Ironhide toy. This is very obviously supposed to be just a generic character that they released. It could have been an Autobot or a Decepticon. It could have been any given character. It could have been a Swindle. It could have been a brand new character. But that, toward the tail end of G2, it just felt like Hasbro was already, like the Transform brand, once again, was sinking so fast. I don't think Hasbro Legal wanted to pay for even like the research to figure out if a toy's name was trademarked already. You know, early days of the internet, couldn't exactly Google it yet. So it was actually kind of a big deal back then. So we know we have this trademark, slap it on there and just release it. Who cares? Just put a toy out. And we end up with is a very boring, very bland Ironhide, which is really unfortunate. Here's one of my surprise hits. There's a lot of really good Ironhides for this, but here's one of the most surprising ones to me. Prime Cyberverse Ironhide. Did everyone kind of forget how good this toy is? So, a little trivia for you. Prime was originally supposed to include Ironhide, which at first they said, no, we switched to Bulkhead because that character fits our vision of the character we need better. And then we find out that, no, it's done because Ironhide was written in to die in the next movie. And they didn't want a living version of the character in the cartoon when they're dying in the movie because they worried that would confuse kids. And to be fair, when you're dealing with kids, yeah, that absolutely would be kind of confusing. But mostly it's just so the two versions didn't overlap. You know, that's why when the toy that was supposed to become Deluxe Ironhide in Prime became Cup over here in America. However, that didn't stop us from getting the Cyberverse version, which it was the commander size, the larger one. So amongst a group of Autobots, he had the stature and the height you would expect for Ironhide. Also, the design has been modified from the Deluxe to have a much wider shoulder base, which makes him look way cooler and way tougher. Way more what I would think of when it comes to an Ironhide. And you top it off with the fact that, yes, he is a pickup truck. He has the two giant forearm cannons. He does have those elements from the movie one blended into the Generation 1 almost to perfection. I absolutely love this Ironhide design. Even more so, like, they remolded this as Trailbreaker, and me, being a big Trailbreaker fan, didn't like it as well. It just works as Ironhide in some weird way. You know, it's just this perfect little blend of everything Ironhide was at the time. And it's one of those designs I kind of wish we'd revisit, and we're probably never going to. But yeah, for a little tiny toy, really, really good Ironhide. And that is how 5 bad and 5 good works. So we go back and forth. We play tennis with the opinion. But of course, it is all just opinion. There's plenty of other bad and good Ironhide toys you are free to discuss in the comments below. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.